Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the regular R&D talk session. That's the session where our R&D experts and research enthusiasts share their insights about novel technologies and its practical application within the business. Today's session will be very interesting because it will unveil the Project Covenant, the one that we've been working for quite a while within R&D. Maybe in the future, within our organizational structure, we'll see not only humans, but also agents. And those agents will help to drive the efficiency and value to the next level. And especially the areas that takes typically 70% or up to 70% of IT budget is that app modernization can be untouched. So today we'll explore how AI agents can reshape that path from modernizing those legacy systems to the future-ready applications and save the cost as well as speed up the time. So real-world examples based on the actual SoftServe projects with the insights and solutions that help to accelerate the journey. Our today's speakers are Volodymyr Karpiev, who is R&D director at SoftServe, drives that initiative, leads the team of production-level generative AI solutions, as well as conduct deep tech research. His extensive background in artificial intelligence, holds a degree in applied mathematics, nuclear engineering, and has extensive experience in research and commercial consulting. And Arkadiusz Dohomiretsky will accompany him, his R&D agentic AI lead, who is responsible for those actual agents development for app modernization and other directions that we pursue. Remind you that in the end of the session, we'll have 10-15 minutes for the questions. So please don't hesitate to put those questions into the chat, and I will ensure that we'll answer them in the end. Volodya, Arkadiusz, the stage is yours.
Hi all. Thank you, Bogdan, for this introduction. You already covered like several of our slides, but no, it's indeed one of agentic initiatives at SoftServe. The goal of this initiative covenant is to accelerate modernization of applications. I'd like to highlight one more initiative, Prometheus, and its goal is to accelerate the development of new applications. But today we'll talk about Covenant mostly and the agents we are building for this initiative. Let me share a few slides. Yeah, so we are building two, I think, important features of the agents we are building is that they're highly specialized and driven by tasks, right? So we have specific tasks for the agents that they can perform. And the goal is to specialize them as much as possible to gain efficiency from accomplishing those tasks. And the goal is to obtain 2-3x efficiency gains through agents. So at the end, the agent will automate manual, well-defined repetitive tasks, which will at the end accelerate time to market, reduce costs, and potentially even generate some new features, solutions, and products. So without starting with too many theoretical, philosophical ideas, let's jump in directly to the demo. Ara, could you please show how the app modernization agent works? And then we'll still review some of the aspects of the agents.
Of course. So yeah, the demo and the app modernization. What we are going to show is a demo of our agent modernizing legacy code into a new modern language. So without further ado, let me quickly share my screen and give you some details about the context. All right. Where is it? Right. So the APIs are important. Based on our experience and the discussion with multiple teams, we found out that big amount of the projects that requires modernization are around the API. Meaning the customers are often using the old legacy technology to drive their API. Quite often those APIs are not well documented, and actually quite complex to understand by the person. And it takes quite a lot of time to actually perform the modernization throughout the different cycles of the process. So here, as an example of work of our agent, we decided to use an old API written in PHP. That is an API for booking tables in a restaurant. It contains basic logic that allows you to present what tables are available and create a booking for those tables. So we have a little bit of PHP code that is under the that is implementing this API, some routings, some controllers that are available, with some methods that the front end or different integration can call. So now we are going to use our agent. So to convert this old legacy PHP code into Node.js with a TypeScript. For the sake of time, since the process of the conversion still takes quite a lot, I will play a video and then displaying the conversion. So here we request our agent actually we provided with the repository that we would like to modernize with the name of the new project and some description of what technology we expect for it to use. So in this case, we are suggesting for the agent to use the Node.js with TypeScript. So what happens at the beginning? You see the video because I actually have difficulties. Let me maybe change how I'm sharing it.
Yeah, we see.
Oh, sorry for that. It froze for me. All right. So back to the topic. So what agent does at the very beginning, it analyzes the structure of the project. It reads all the files that are within the project. And here we introduce the business analyst agent, which tries to deduce based on the documentation, if there is some, and the files, so the source code, what is the functionality of the API. As a result of it, it provides a description of the API with all of the files, all of the libraries that are being used, an architectural description, some potential inputs and outputs from the API. So for the API perspective, this will be requests, bodies of the requests, and the bodies of the response, for example. Then we introduce the architect, who is actually designing the structure of the new application. So based on the source code of the entry project and the analyst report, it provides a comprehensive architecture of the new project, defining what files should be used in the new project and what kind of libraries should be used, and describes all of this functionality for each of the files as a form of the comment within those files. And then the agent actually starts creating the structure for the new project. And once this is completed, the next agent that is being used is a developer agent. So developer meaning the agent that is actually going to write the code. So it first understands what architecture was proposed by the architect agent by reading all of the files created by the agent and all of the comments, as well as the documentation and the input from the analyst. So once this is done, the agent starts actually writing the code. So based on this documentation, it generates the functions. Here we can see a type, so the requests and the responses for the API. Then we can see how the agent is implementing the controllers. for the API. And we have a booking controller. We have also a table controller. Both are being used by the agent. So once this is completed, the agent actually, there is another agent that is being used. It's called a builder agent that makes sure that the code that was generated will be compiling successfully. There are no issues. So here we can see that the agent actually was trying to build the application, but it ended up with an error because the error is of type of unknown. So what the agent actually will do, it will analyze the source code of the application, and it will propose which line should be changed in order to fix the error. Once this is completed, the agent confirms that the project was built successfully. And at the very end, we can consider that the initial stage of the conversion was completed. Yes, so also just we can have a quick look on how the project works. In the meantime, I already, after preparing the demo, I uploaded it to GitHub. So here we have a complex documentation for the new Modernize project with steps necessary to actually run the project, with examples of the responses and the requests. We can also take a quick look on how the code is structured, where we have a main file, we have models that were created by the agent, and we have also the controllers created by the agent. All of those controllers are well documented. As for future steps, we also plan to extend to generate the unit tests with the code at the same time. So we guarantee that the code that is being modernized is already have a high coverage of the test cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, for this practical demo. Now I would suggest to go through several aspects of the agent we built, and at the end to cover with some case studies of actual projects where those agents were applied for the customers. Yeah, coming back to the slides. Yeah, this one about agents. So what we mean by agents, this is a language model that the goal of an agent is to convert actually text to action. This is very different from language models that convert text to text or text to image or image to text, right? And this is also the whole infrastructure around those language models. It is not the model itself, but memory, access to APIs, to additional tools that can be used to convert the initial prompt into the action that is performed. And in this case, by actions, we mean actions on operating system, could be actions in real world, but actions on operating system like keyboard inputs, mouse clicks, screenshots, and those like three main type of actions. Agents can interact between each other to deliver more complex tasks. As you have seen on the example from RX, there were several agents involved, starting from business analysis, architect, code development, testing agent, right? Deployment agents you can have. Then the idea is not to take into account like directly this definition, this name, right? Because they often perform very specialized, very narrow tasks required to accomplish overall modernization, which can be, again, very different from broad set of tasks that like human developers perform, but still, this is like, this name helps to better define their specialization in a given task. And then there are, of course, different architectural patterns, how to use those agents to minimize errors, hallucinations, in the meantime of converting those textual prompts to actions. Here, I'd like to walk you through a very like simplified path of modernization of apps, and starting from just a simple one, when we need to modernize either backend or front end. We start typically with like there might be interviews with stakeholders, available systems, available code base, right? as it is converted into documentation, and then like typical process when we collect requirements, plan the project, write code, test it, and then at the end receive this backend application and final product. So I'm showing this as like a simplified, like path of simplified application. Also, a big amount of work is done here in cycles of development of new features, right? When we develop, test, and iterate on either the same features or build adding new features to the pipeline. Then you may have more complex application so that you don't have only backend, but you need to develop front end, you need to develop data pipelines. You can have many more of similar passes that ideally would go in parallel. Still, we start with this analysis of requirements, launch those passes in parallel, and then combine them for the final product at the end. But what happens in reality is that often you have some features that were present in the previous application, right? That don't have direct equivalents in the new frameworks. So for these features, you need to do like very special, and the customer wants those features. It just requests them and it doesn't compromise on any changes or simplifications. So this is another path that can be sometimes underestimated when we initially scope such projects, and where development has to be done from scratch. So from scratch, we need to develop this functionality and maintain, even so it is like not natural type of features for the target framework. Other things that often happens, and those who are doing this app modernization projects will agree, I guess, that often the scope is not like fully estimated if we do this like a fixed project, fixed price project. So part of the scope was not clear since the beginning. After the in-depth like initial phases of work of preparing the requirements, we sometimes figure out that there are much more like sometimes 20, sometimes 50% or even more scopes that was not initially included and has to be delivered to the customer. This is like typical scenarios and situations, and there are many more, but where agents can also help to accelerate project delivery. Here I highlighted several of those directions. So the first one is around preparation of documentation of initial like inputs for requirement preparation. Here, this is often like time-consuming process where you need to discuss with multiple stakeholders, review code base like to different like degree, to different depths, right? Provide some initial estimates and refine them. And for this, the agent can actually iterate through huge amounts of code, information, extract the insights, and have them structured for the further steps of development. And we'll see some examples of this and very practical case studies when agents help in this part. Then the next one is about this whole like iterative development process. What typically happens, we like the development takes time. People like take time to write type code, to test it, for different stages, processes of software development, while agents with good enough specifications can develop quite fast this like big chunks of these features. So from one perspective, they can significantly accelerate this whole like sequential process. But from the other hand, they still do some mistakes and errors that have to be fixed and analyzed in very different ways that we test, develop, and debug code written by humans, right? And so the third part, when we finally validate the development code, also will change significantly to how we see it now. So yeah, we are at the moment building agents. Those agents can be used for different tasks. By agents, same as Arek mentioned, there is architect, developer, BA agent, QA agent, several others like data agent. Then we combine them for tasks like API testing, UI testing. This is like one of the initial agents that were developed within our R&D team. Then the task we are like discussing at the moment and a big focus for the coming like quarters will be around application modernization. So several more agents that can plan this more complex migration projects where we have a lot of prior information and scope unclear, where multiple agents interact, and actually the agents can be reused between different tasks. Like you can see BA agent for API testing. This is very similar agents that can be used for app modernization. We're also working on several opportunities around data generation, data insertion in the pipeline, so data agent, and of course BA agent, important part of the whole pipeline of app modernization, but can be used also standalone from other applications. Moving ahead, we'll not have time to dive deep into all the agents, but I'd like to walk you through the QA agent and some of its aspects, some of its features that we have at the moment. Here's a video that describes QA agent. It can be applied either to UI testing or API testing. As the inputs are test cases, could be in the form of PDF, in the form of other files provided to the agent. As the goal is just to describe the action that has to be performed, expected result, right? Some additional hints to simplify navigation of the agent through the application. You provide this documentation, the agent uploads it, parse it, and extracts these test cases and identifies the closest tests in the system that can correspond to this test cases or generates new tests. Here's the process. We uploaded the tests. We have on the left side, we see examples of test cases that were extracted. On the right side, you see a text interface. Through this text interface, you can also interact with the agents and with the whole testing process. We are starting a new session. We're selecting one of the test cases. And on the left side, you see the example of the application. Here is speech recognition app that we are expected to test. And the initial request was verify successful login. And then agent parses request, plans sequence of steps, understands the UI user interface. It was trained on tens of thousands of UI interfaces, and then there are a few other modifications to this model, but it can understand the key elements on the screen with which it can interact, like text boxes, buttons, other elements of the interface. And once it identified the test, it controls mouse, keyboard, enters login and password, and verifies whether the test was successful or not. Again, we'll probably not go through the entire process of testing and features available, but the idea is that at the end you will get a report with results of testing, when you can review whether the test was successful, summary of the testing, screenshots, have the summary at the end. There are some features like agent builds graph of the applications that it can navigate through. So connection of windows, how you can pass between those windows. So I think it's mainly it. And the idea is that with this application, the user will be able to first convert test cases into automated tests, run them, but also have as one of the outputs this playwright or other automated scripts that can be run from other applications. Moving ahead here is some of the business impact of those QA agents. We compared the time needed for human QA engineers and humans that are using these agents for 3 tasks. It's execution of tests, execution plus reporting, and execution plus reporting plus automation of manual tests. Here we're involved from both junior QA engineers and senior lead engineers. You see 2 tables. The first one contains simple tests, simple meaning 3 to 5 consecutive steps are performed to accomplish testing, one test case. And the second table is more complex tests. And this typically take up to 15 steps, between 12 to 15 consecutive steps, which is already a very decent result, right, for real world testing of the applications, which involve multiple consecutive steps. And what we see from the results is that human QA engineers are still faster in execution of tests and execution plus reporting. It's almost 3 times for both simple and complex tests. This is due to the fact that language models still have latency in response, right? When we write the request, and you have seen it on previous videos, it still takes some time to process it, understand what has to be done, and then execute, while humans can go, click, and much faster perform the testing. But when the biggest gains come is when we want to automate manual testing, because automation takes an order of magnitude, like 10 times more time for humans to write automation scripts, while the agent get it out of the box. So once it performed the test, generated the report, we already have this automation scripts available, and which save around 3 times the time to prepare automation scripts. So this is like, for now, we see this as one of the biggest like use cases of applying QA agents to automate manual testing. But there are also more testing use cases that are in progress of development. We'll cover them as well. Here is a brief example of automation scripts. As we mentioned before, we can both run tests and generate automated scripts. Automated scripts can be reused in other applications of your choice. But the biggest advantage of, one of the advantages of QA agents is that the scripts will actually be similar to how humans write them. You can see it on the right side, in contrast to how automation, like this typical QA automation tools work. So they write code that is very difficult to maintain in the future, and very different from the ones that a human would write. And here are several aspects, right? From testing framework, reliability of actions, stability of the solution, verification, and so on and so forth. About deployment, so those agents are designed to work with, they're containerized. So basically, the customer can run it fully on their site, in their own environment. We can run it on our site. It can be run both on-prem and in cloud. It needs GPUs to run the language models. So if you run on-prem, we have GPUs, and we can use different language models under the hood, like from Llama and DeepSeek, like common choices at the moment. But also you can use it with cloud APIs in Azure, in Bedrock, in GCP will come soon as well. So you typically pick a model like 4.0 that will be responsible for processing the requests and generating the responses to like summaries, planning of next steps, and preparing like documentation of code and the steps needed from language model. So both options are possible, and depending on like customer needs, it can be used either in their own environment in on-prem, or they can still use calls to cloud APIs. Yeah, here is a comparison, because often we get questions like, how is it different from Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, GitHub Copilot, or how is it different from automation tools? And so here is like a brief summary of the differences. Like to sum this up, like they are designed for like different tasks. QA agent performs like different tasks than Copilot, and both can accomplish different tasks than automation tools. We just saw one of the examples of automation scripts that are generated, which are much easier to maintain from QA agent. But there are also like different aspects, whether automation tools, they typically run this automation test, but Copilot can design, write test cases, extract, like generate new, author some of the content, and QA agent does both. Then there are several other aspects like self updates of the tests. With time, for example, user interface changes, so the test will be updated accordingly. And then there are different needs in terms of expertise, like whether coding expertise is needed to run the agents, and to run QA agent, you don't need really to have coding expertise. You should guide the agent, should help him navigate at some most difficult cases, and he will ask you questions, right? Whether he goes right direction or not, but no need to have like coding or very specialized knowledge there. I mean, this, I think, are main aspects, right? Main aspects of comparison between those three, and we are also like running with a QMO team. We are planning a sequence of benchmarks similar to the one I presented before, like to show numerical estimates of what QA agent, the task it can achieve, and compared to automation tools and copilots. Testing use cases. So at the moment, as I said, manual test automation is the main use case, but test case execution is slightly slower compared, like not 3 times slower, but the technology will evolve and execution may be also like important use case. We're also working on test coverage. So this means writing new tests. For example, there is existing code base, new features were developed. How do we cover those new features with tests based on diffs or commit history or other input data? And test maintenance, also important topic if you have multiple legacy tests to ensure that they don't become outdated with time. Those two are in progress, while manual test automation is for now the biggest use case for QA agents. Yeah, for the delivery of the projects here, I would like to mention once again Arkadiusz. He's leading the development of agents at R&D, like all those different types. This R&D of design the agent, combining them into solutions is on the side, like validating them on the side of his team. And by the way, we also have this separation, right, with agent development team and professional services team. The goal of professional services would be to take the agents from one side, understand the setup of the customer project, right, and adapt the agent to the specific need of modernization or testing on the project. There will be this bridge between that know at the same time agents in depth and adapt them to the needs of the customer. And for this also, feel free to reach Serhiy Miroshnichenko. He's building some of those solutions at the moment for the customers. There are two models. So we, of course, work within the typical service model, service approach. Here, the goal is to reduce the cost of modernization, let's say, for the customer, but at the same time, increase profitability, so reduce internal costs. For the company, it will be less expensive to develop the project, but also part of this cost will be more competitive price for the customer. And then there is another type of engagement model like licensing. Licensing is when, for example, QA agent, our team can use this agent, but also teams on the side of the customer can license it, for example, per month, per number of users, and use it to automate manual tests much faster. By the way, for internal service approach and to increase awareness about those agents, we'll conduct sessions like knowledge sharing sessions internally within SoftServe, so that more and more of associates are getting up to speed with those and are able to use them in projects. Here again, once again, a summary of different solutions we are building with agents. API testing we didn't cover, but again, the main difference is that here we provide not test cases as input, but rather documentation of APIs, and then there is agents that analyzes it, extracts test cases, and then the flow is very similar to UI testing. So here now, I think the next part would be about some of the case studies. We'll not go into all the details. We have around 5-6 case studies, but just to share with you the general idea. This was a customer from energy domain, and they were running, they were having 82 C++ modules that were running on-prem to process seismic data. Very complex, needs specialized knowledge to write them, and the goal was to make them available for inference in cloud. So some very specific modifications had to be done to make them convert to library style of those modules. But according to initial estimates, the task would take 8 days total per module. So 5 days for development, 3 days for testing. And you can imagine those 82 modules had to be adapted in quite a similar way. And so by adapting the agents, the time of development reduced from 5 days to 1 day, and still 3 days of testing remained, which resulted in 50% of reduction of time needed for this modernization. This one is another case from gaming. The customer had more than 6,500 C++ classes. but was liking unit tests and testing in general. So the goal of the customer was to minimize regression of this huge like C++ code base. And the idea is that with agents, we were able to cover, like the goal was to cover 70% of the code base with tests, 70% on more, and then do refactoring of the code base, but ensure that there will be minimal this, how to say, regressions, minimal regressions. Again, one more use case when testing specifically unit tests were like coverage test case coverage with unit tests was accelerated significantly. This one is from retail, and this one is ongoing project actually. Here also very interesting case for our BA agent. The idea is that a customer is starting about to start the project with SoftServe on app modernization, but it has like big code base, documentation, and to analyze analysis of this huge code base takes lots of time. Providing accurate estimates is very time consuming process. But here's a BA agent helped to reduce the efforts, I think, by an estimate, and this is an estimate of around 30%, but 30% not of the part of analysis of inputs, but of the whole project. So this is an estimate that it helped to reduce by 30% the whole duration of modernization for this customer. Here is another customer from the security domain. Here they are building an identity management system that requires multiple authentication options, that provides multiple authentication objects, and testing this authentication steps is typically a manual process that requires lots of manual efforts. And the idea was that to design an agent that will analyze this user interfaces and will be able to automate testing like login, passwords. We'll see where the login was successful or not, together with vision language models to remove all those manual efforts of testing. Here, once again, there were two approaches, both classical and agent-based approach to automation. Yeah, to my understanding, Arkadiusz, correct me if I'm wrong, but both approaches resulted to be successful. So here, both agentic approach and classical approach achieved this task of manual testing. Yeah. One more, this one is a customer from, I think, nonprofit organization. And here, SoftServe is doing API modernization for them. API modernization, like once you have older API and the new APIs, the goal is to ensure that the functionality of the new API features are perform the same way as in the initial version. So you need to cover them with tests. And once again, the goal of the agent was to test both APIs, ensure that the output will be the same, and then to extend it to other endpoints. So I think at the moment, this is also an ongoing project with very promising results. And in the future, this type of engagement may convert also to licensing of those API testing agents. Also, by the way, working on this one with Oleg Koropita, so going really, really nicely. Yeah, and one of the final, I think, case studies for today is about, here is construction, customer from construction domain. The goal is that they don't really have manual tests, neither test cases or test coverage overall. Here it's not a modernization effort, but rather they have their internal system, and the goal of QA agent is first to analyze documentation. From this documentation, extract test cases, and based on these test cases, build automated tests. The thing is that for them, they often change documentation. The system is under development. There are new features that are added, and so the agent needs to be updated regularly. I'm not saying in real time, but regularly. And if there are any changes detected in documentation, those changes have to be updated to the test cases and then to automated tests at the end. As well, this is an ongoing initiative. when we are like running the agents in their own environment, and yeah, ensuring this good test coverage, and ensuring that different parts of their system are correctly understood and navigated through the agent. Yeah, hopefully it was brief and quite fast, but just to give you an idea about several of the customers, and multiple other opportunities are still in progress. I think we'll get more and more focus on those more complex projects of app modernization, which is actually the ultimate goal of Project Covenant, is to accelerate different aspects of modernization efforts. QA agents, BA agent, developer testing, those will be part of the solution, of the bigger picture. Do you have any questions? I see that the number of messages is growing in the chat. Maybe there are some questions. Maybe someone would like to. Yeah.
There is a number of questions, and Arkadiusz did a great job of answering already some of those. So probably we'll go still one by one, and then starting with an answered, and then just if you will have time, give your opinion on the ones that Arkadiusz already answered. So question number one, how much QA agent will cost for the project? Is there a chance to play with QA agent before full onboarding on the project?
Yes, there is a chance, definitely. So QA agents are now deployed on GenAI portal, so you can request credentials there and experiment with like default version of the application. Integrating agent into specific application takes time and effort, so this is also possible. But probably once you like get this initial understanding, then we can discuss like next steps and set up required access to the application. Probably there are a few more like additional requirements for API, like having documentation or having test cases. And yes, we can plan like this integration of QA agents so that you can experiment yourself and get like your own feeling of automation process. Yeah, for this, feel free to reach out to me, to Bogdan, feel free to Arkadiusz or to Serhiy, Arkadiusz and Serhiy. So also there contacts in the presentation. So we'll be happy to like, share more information, provide an idea, and probably schedule when we can work on agents for your specific applications that you have in mind.
Thanks for the question, Oleg. And thanks for the answer, Vladimir. So the next one is from Andrei Vityuk. Is it possible to create my own agent using your infrastructure?
So look, I think I'm trying to think about reusable parts and stuff. At the end, agents that we are building, the core idea is that we have language models, we enable it with tools, APIs, memory, so on and so forth. So again, probably Arkadiusz has opinion on this one. But again, if we have any components that can be reused and that you see are valuable, let's get in touch and we'll be happy to share expertise, our learned lessons, or the code if you need for any of those. Or the solutions. Here's the tricky part, because some of the solutions we expect to license. So it will be really important that, the code still remains, within this licensing agreements and terms. But then again, we will be happy to share as much as we can from knowledge to the code that we're using at the moment. Do you have, Arik, any additional considerations or that are important for this, or any building blocks you have in mind immediately that can be reused for other projects?
Nothing immediately, but I will actually think about this. This is first time I hear this question, so let me think whether we can.
Look, yeah, but by the way, one of the most probably will have a hackathon around agents, and actually it will be a good opportunity for you to build your agents or experiment with agents we are providing or other teams may have available. So I think there are good chances that we'll also think in that direction to see about some sandbox or set of tools that can accelerate this process. Don't have it now, but again, I think this hackathon, you can expect it in closer to the second half of May, company-wise.
Thanks for the answer, Vladimir Arkadiusz. So the next question is from Roman. Roman is asking, there's quite a long question, contains number of few, so I'll read them through so you get the whole context. How many real projects have already adopted QA agents on a regular basis? What does the adoption process look like, and how is the team structure working with the agents look like? Do team members need any specific skills to work efficiently with agents, or do they need an agent expert on the team? So first question was around how many QA agents on the regular basis are adopted, or many real projects.
So I would say those six are the projects. There are two or three more that we didn't present yet, but that were either like completed or are in progress. For the licensing part, we like I think we need to double check. So we don't yet have like commercial licensing project in place, but on several of those like POCs, we are close to deploying them for the customers. And then there are other projects for app modernization, and the goal is to save effort, so they are more like on the background. I mean, if the question is about a number, I would say like what six projects presented in the slides, and probably one, two additional ones that are about to start. One in energy domain, one in another. So six, 8 projects, I would say.
How does the adoption and the team structure typically look like? That was the second.
Yeah, great question. So you saw on the slides that there are two teams. One that develops agents, the other professional services. So the idea is that for the project, there are two approaches, right? Either this professional services team integrates the agent for the needs of the specific project, modernization or testing one, which typically consists of two phases. Integration of the agent with the environment, project environment, and then the second is validation that it navigates through the application correctly, so that it doesn't confuse, like correctly interprets different pages of and can achieve like the destination and or through the testing process. The second type of engagement is like I think those agentic initiatives will be popularized more and more in the coming weeks, even weeks and months. And there might be the teams that already are familiar with the agent, have access to it, and will be able to use and deploy them in their project. But I think for the initial project, it will be most probably through this professional services team who will ensure that the agent operate correctly before providing access of them to the existing teams.
And last one was around, do we need any specific skills to work effectively with an agent, or do they need an agent expert on the team?
So we were considering, so after this onboarding of agents, there might be some minimal trainings of how to work with them, but then you have seen there is textual interface, there are some prompts that, again, prompting is not expected to be part, or on the user side, prompting should be under the hood of the agent, so they, like based on initial requests, they will understand what to do. I think there might be just minimal like knowledge sharing or best practices, methodologies shared, and then users will be able to use them. This is the goal, to make them as simple in use as I mean, without any very specialized knowledge and understanding of how they work, like under the hood.
Yeah, thanks for the question and answer, Volodya. The next question is from Sver. Sver is asking, is the COBOL translation agent mature to sell the customer, and do we have COBOL expertise to validate the results?
Yeah, so great case study, great topic. Again, I didn't cover this in our slides, but this is another case, another commercial project in financial domain, where the agent showcased really strong like efficiency gains, right? Efficiency gains of code modernization. I am not exactly sure about COBOL expertise, if Arik or Bogdan can help with this, but I would encourage you to reach out to the data science team, either through their email or Alexei or Dmitro Zikrach. They will be able to share more information about like exact domain expertise in COBOL or in this COBOL modernization efforts. I think this part, everything related to COBOL, I would refer to them first.
Thanks for the response. Next one is Daniel. Daniel's asking, have you researched possible application where we can implement MCPs in the customer solutions? MCP protocol from Anthropic, probably referring to.
MCP, interesting. Look, MCP, about all the new updates and frameworks and stuff, I usually get to know from Arkadiusz. Arkadiusz posts them in the chat, like, look, Magnus, the new agent, and then a few weeks later, I have already access. Do you want to play with it as well? MCP, I know that it is very like a powerful protocol to to integrate different tools and make them available for the agent. But again, about our plans and roadmap, Arkadiusz, maybe you can share more, like, right, your perspective of, do you plan to integrate it, make an option, or when, or why not, if not?
Actually, in the meantime, I already started responding to this question. So yeah, MCPs actually offer quite great extensions to the agent, so we can reuse some of the existing tools that are already available open source. However, there are like few things to consider. For example, the quality and the safety of the tools. So I think that the decision of using MCPs should be based on the need. So in case if we need to implement something for the agent, then we can review what are the available MCP servers, MCP tools, and we can actually review whether it makes sense to use them because of those considerations.
That's right. The logic, if is it correct to assume if you need to integrate with like less a number of tools and you can build those protocols yourself, which is currently the part of the agents we are working with, so you may not need any additional protocol like or tools if they are not part of the solution. Is it right?
Not sure if I
Like, if you need to work with 3-4 tools and you can build this, connect to it yourself, right? You may not need any additional third-party protocol to ensure this.
Yes,
information.
exactly. That's the case. So definitely we can consider this in some of the cases, like for the QA testing agent, we can have a tool that is able to do some prerequisites for a test case, which exposes the MCP protocol, and actually the agent could implement it and use it. So yeah, definitely something we are considering currently. Like for the list of the tools, then we are still researching which one are the best choice for us.
Thanks for the answer, guys. The last unanswered question, let's say, is from Yuri, and Yuri is asking, can we have a catalog of AI components which can be reused across the company with requirements for integration and maybe description of components?
We can think about it. We can suggest. I mean, some of parts of the agents we have at the moment. Again, this was not part of I mean, we didn't think in that direction before. If we can somehow sum this up and make it available, and so that people use and build on top of it, it could be also. I mean, we'll consider this, and we'll. Our current approach was more like try to cover as many customer requests as possible. So when we talk about our initial approach of modernization testing, like lots of interest were generated, and then our goal was rather not to build something that we think will be useful, but first build for them, and then generalize, build IP around it, and write. But based on the actual requests from the customers. Like I understand that this can accelerate the adoption within the SoftServe, so it could be a great idea also to prepare set of reusable components or tools to share. We'll consider this. Again, I cannot give you any deadlines or timelines when it can be available, but we'll definitely consider. And most probably, some of it will be available for the hackathon in May.
Great. So those were all the unanswered questions. If there is something that was answered in the chat and you would like to hear opinion of Volodymyr, also feel free to reach him out. And so many questions. That means the topic was very interesting. And I think we are good to finish our today's session if no more questions. So
thank you, guys. Thank you for the interest in the topic, AI agents. Please follow tightly like the next announcements and next events around it. But yeah, this is like a big important direction. We'll see where it brings us, but looks like it has a big potential. So having interest in this from this early stages, I think will be definitely like, I mean, there are lots and lots of new discoveries and new solutions that will appear in the nearest months. So yeah, let's follow it together.
Thanks everyone, and see you in the next R&D talk. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.